Well, welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Today we're going to talk about new acquisitions. So what we have here is a little orchard that we've started a couple of years ago, and we recently just put in a bunch more. So we've got apple, pear, peach, and cherries. And if you look over here, these are the last 3 cherry trees that we took out. We had a whole bunch of them in here, and they were all clustered together, and they didn't produce and stuff like that. And ever since I took out the bad ones and stuff, they got a ton of buds on them, so hopefully they'll do good this year. So anyway, the other thing we did is we came back over here and cleaned out these crappy old trees and stuff, a lot of it and stuff, so we get more sunlight on them and stuff, and it really has helped. So anyway, we'll be back here in a second and show you some of the other trees. Well, this is one of the little cherry trees. You can see all the buds on them. Really doing good. The only problem we've had is we're still freezing at night, but so far it hasn't affected the trees. And off to the side here, we got more junk trees that got to come out because they'll be shading them and stuff. And they're also in the ditch there that needs to come out. So eventually we'll get this all cleaned right all the way through here. And then in the back there is where we were taking out those dead trees, so we'll go take a quick look at those, and then we'll move on to our new acquisition. Well, we're back, talk about our other new acquisition, and our videos just wouldn't be complete without another new chainsaw. This is a Homelite C-7. See the decal there? This is a big old monster saw from way back. Get my BS sheet out here and give you all the hot specs on it. Okay, it was made in 1963 and 1964. It's 80.5 cc. Supposedly weighs 18.5 pounds without a bar on it. And I think they are fibbing because we'll weigh it and find out. Runs at 6,500 cutting speed. And it's supposed to run 16:1 oil ratio, which with modern oils you can run a little thinner than that, but it's got a 404 chain. It's got a 17-inch bar on it, which is the shortest chain. 30-inch would be max on it. And it has a manual oiler only for the bar oil. The thing that's interesting about this saw, it says convertible, and you could buy a kit from Homelite, and you could put a kit in there to make it into a gear drive. This is a direct drive now, and other than just a little bit of paint loss, it's really a nice shape. The where it was kept, I believe, though, must have been in a shop with a window because the paint is faded on it, but most of it's still on there. You know, internally it's fine. So I'll talk a little bit about how I got this saw. I saw it on Craigslist, and so I went to the town where it was at and met a guy at a convenient location, which happened to be the old shop that I used to work at. And so when he showed up, he looks at me and said, "Boy, you look familiar." I said, "Yeah, I used to work in this shop here for years." He says, "Oh yeah, my dad was a customer, and he always liked the way you treated him and the great work you did and stuff like that." And he said he was always talking to other people about it and stuff, and so that's why you always go the extra mile for people to help them do stuff and do a really good job and stuff, because this is years ago, and he remembered after all these years his son. And so, you know, he wanted pretty good money for it, and after he talked to me and stuff, he just sold it to me for next to nothing because he knew that I could fix it and do stuff with it. Plus, you know, the good memories that he had from his dad. But he took really good care of it. You know, the chain is cut way back quite a bit here, but you know, it doesn't have much rock in it and stuff, and Mostly he did really nice maintenance on this thing. The only thing that he neglected was the exhaust system, which I have off. And I've cleaned out the port. There was a little bit of carbon in that, but the reason that when you get an old saw, you know, your first tendency is to grab it and pull it through, and that's a mistake, because like this muffler, this baffle plate here, get it in the sun if you can see it better, got a lot of carbon in there. Fortunately it wasn't loose, but what happens when you get an old saw like that, you know, you want to test it for compression and stuff like that. So if that stuff is loose or got rust in it, first thing it's going to do is when you pull it, it's going to go right in this port here, right into the cylinder and score it. So what I do is, like on this saw where the exhaust is on the side, I put it on its side and then pull it through real slowly. You can see it's got really good compression. That way nothing gets into the cylinder. And I've checked it for spark. It has really good spark, but I've got to get a carburetor kit for it where I can get it running and stuff, but we'll do a full test on it when I get it ready to go. So I'll be back after a bit here. I'm gonna show you how I do a muffler restoration. So once I get that started, I'll be back. Okay, well, there's the carbon that came out of the muffler. Pretty substantial. You can say if that gets in your engine, it's junk. So remember to take that and clean it before you do anything else on the saw. And here's the components. This is kind of unique. It has a deflector here, so it directs the air on the cylinder better, and this is your spark arrestor here. One thing I've noticed on the Homelites, they don't have a whole lot of space for the exhaust to go through, and I think it's pretty restrictive, but you know, you have to have some restriction to make a two-stroke work properly. But I think that's excessive, so when I test this thing, I'm going to leave it in for the first test and take it out. But here's the inside of the muffler. Now what I use for this is a glass beater. It has compressed air and little beads of different material. This happens to be a certain type of sand, but it takes all the carbon out of it and the rust and everything off it. If you don't have one, you can do the same type of work using wire brush, either on a bench grinder or something, or you can actually even use this little brushes like this and get in there and do that. And you can use a little round wheel on a drill and run it through there too, but it takes a lot more time. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're get ready to paint this stuff. So we want to take and use a solvent. This is just going to be denatured alcohol to get any grease or anything like that off it. And I want to put on a clean surface, obviously. I'm going to clean it inside and out. You see what a nice job. There's no carbon or anything in there. Do the same thing with this. So we'll get this all cleaned up. And the next step that I use to paint these things, I use a high heat paint. There's several types of it. You can get it for barbecues, or you can get motorcycle case paint for two strokes and stuff like that. And black is what I use, or silver, one or the other. So anyway, I'm going to take these in and put them in the oven, put it up to 200 degrees, and by the time I come out here and get ready to paint, I'll wait till the temperature drops to around 150 or 140, and I'll paint it, and I'll be right back when that's ready. Okay, well, it's ready to paint it. You wonder why I have this sitting in a bucket. Got water in it, and this was out in the garage overnight and froze last night, so the paint was really cold. So I put warm tap water, so it's about 3/4 of the way up, and sit in there and let it sit for about a half hour to warm the paint up. It makes a huge difference how much better the paint finish comes out. So let's see, we'll give it a little quick shot here. It might be just a little bit warm yet. If you spray it on and it bubbles up, then you know it's a little too hot, but that's just perfect. Let's see if I can turn these so you can see it. See the shadow in here. I always paint the inside first because that's where the paint needs to be on there the best. Usually put a couple of layers in there just to make it durable. And paint the sides here while got it. Well, the metal's still hot. Like I say, this, since it's a high heat paint, and there's different qualities of it. This one's for barbecue, so it's pretty high heat. Automotive stuff's even better, but pretty expensive and there's no real need for it. The exhaust on these don't run that hot. So we'll let those sit for just a little bit, and as soon as these edges are dry here, I'll flip them and paint the outside. Okay, we'll just shake the paint a little more and finish it up. Let's see, that just flows on beautifully. That heat in there makes all the difference. Plus it cures almost instantly. Let's see what a nice high gloss finish that is. Okay, well, we'll let that cure and dry and be back when we're ready to install it on the saw. Okay, well, we've got the muffler completely back together and painted. So now we have to do is mount it. Here you can see, completely restored, clean muffler. Ports are clean. All I have left to do is rebuild the carburetor as soon as I get my kit. So anyway, another good piece of junk on the vintage homestead.